I start with one of three things. Either a character, a setting, or a question. Those are the three primary ways that I generate ideas quickly and move along. And because once you have one, the others come much quicker, all right? You can see the books that are out there, right? Narnia, clearly he had an idea about this really super cool place, right? And I don't know if he came up with a question or the characters. I don't know what he came up with next, but I'm pretty sure Narnia started with the idea about a place. And we know that Tolkien did that with the Lord of the Rings trilogy, right? Other place settings, even like Anne of Green Gables, that could have been, I want to set something here. What would make this a really fascinating place for someone when it's rather mundane for the rest of Canada, perhaps, right? At least at that time. So Anne of Green Gables could have been a setting. I don't think so. I think Anne of Green Gables began with a character. Orphan stories were really popular at the time, and I think that Lucy Maud Montgomery came up with her own idea for it. Well, what about this kind of a character? And when she had this, romantic, imaginative, a spunky girl, okay, where can I set her where it would stifle her if she were anyone else? Because, here's this slow-moving place, right? So I really think she came up with a character first. And then some books are clearly question-driven, and others maybe not so much. My first book that I ever wrote was question-driven. People kept asking me how I managed with 8 children. They couldn't handle the 1 or 2 that they had, and how could I handle 8? Well, you don't get 8 all at once, right? You get them 1 at a time. Some people 2, not me. I did 1 the old-fashioned way, And it was, slow. Once I got used to the 1, I had a baby today. The earliest I could have another baby, the absolute max if I were a guinea pig, would be 9 months from now, because, humans just don't get pregnant the day that they give birth like guinea pigs can, We just don't. But, the earliest, I had 9 months to get used to that one before I added another one in, except that mine was usually 18 to 24 months, I had a year and a half to 2 years to get used to having this one in the mix before I added another one. But that question made me go, well, yeah, but what would happen if you did get 8 all at once? And of course I did the cruel author thing and went, okay, well, what if you were single? What if you didn't know a lot about young children? What if you had spent only time with these kids, in a family setting? You'd never been one-on-one, you'd never babysat. And then, what if you got a mother-in-law in the mix? You're not even married and you've got your sister's mother-in-law, interfering. Stereotypical, horrible mother-in-law, right? And I just piled on the mess, really tortured her. But it all began with a question. So as soon as I had that question, guess what? I had a character. I had to have a character who was young. I had to have a character who didn't have, the character grew out of that question when I started piling more on it, right? And then I needed a setting. And, that setting became rather easy for me because many, if not most of my books are set in this Rockland area. And I've created this world. So, obviously she was going to go there and I just went for it. Okay. Lots of books start in many different ways. You just need one. So when you're trying to generate an idea, you're going to want to look at one of those 3. There are other ways that stories are, there's theme and there's all kinds of other stuff that you can pull in. But for quick idea generation, I recommend one of those 3. And once you have one, like I said, the others are going to follow. So in this class, we need to really look at those 3 because we don't have much time. We have 2 weeks to generate this idea and get it rolling on November 1st. So we have to get this going and we have to get it going quickly. So character. Character is a really easy one. If you find someone that, do you usually write about spunky girls? So you want to go for a more sedate, more Melanie Wilkes type person, but maybe you want to put her a twist. Maybe you don't want her to ever appear to be weak, but she's just incredibly, more of a Fanny Price from Mansfield Park, where she can come off weak as to some people, but most people know she is steadfast, she is firm, she is strong. She's just a servant, okay? And so you may want to, you've never written that character, so maybe that's the character you're going for. Maybe you've never done a really reformed person, where they were a druggie on the streets and, in a gang or whatever, and now they're trying to figure out this new life in Jesus. Maybe you've never done that before, and that's the character you want. Or maybe you want something a little more fantasy oriented, and so you've never done fantasy, and you want this wizardy kind of person who is not using magic, but he's just this really wise old thing that teaches this world for whatever reason. You've got this character and you know who he is. The minute you think of him, you can feel him, you can see him, you can understand him. Well, then write him. There you've got a character. But if after like 15-20 minutes of thinking of the different types of things that you've never done and you want to do different, or you wrote this sort of kind of like this character, but you didn't do it justice, you wanted to try again, then go with that. But if after 15 or 20 minutes you don't have a character, move on. Go to the next thing. Think of a setting. Because a setting is often going to determine what kind of character you have. Okay, if you are setting something in the Old West, you're not going to have some science fiction ship captain who is, running the ship next to a cactus. Unless you're doing like Firefly, but it's just, you're not going to do that as a general rule if you want the Old West. With the Old West, there are certain things that people are going to expect enough of. Sure, have characters that twist, don't make every single one just a trope. I'm all for that. You don't want to just stereotype everything and make it all rather predictable, but you do want to have certain things. In the Old West, there's going to be a marshal or a sheriff or some sort of law and order that at some point will need to come along. Is that who your story's about? No? Okay. That's not your character that you're going, who is someone trying to settle? He's a city boy from from New York, upper New York State, and he's from Buffalo, and he has moved into, Deadwood because he's going to farm. So he goes to Deadwood. Yeah, this guy's a genius, right? And so he's going to farm in Deadwood, and he knows he can do it because, after all, he's from Buffalo, and what is more out west than Buffalo? Great, you've got a character. No, that's not who you want. You want it to be a female protagonist, and you don't. Well, then what else is there? Who else would you expect to see? Did she used to be a madam of a brothel? Are you going to go that route? There are so many things that you can take that is rather tropish, if you will, and you can turn it on its head. But if, again, you've got your setting and that character doesn't come along yet, it's okay, because you skip the character and you go to question. What do you want to happen in this story? Why would some city boy come from New York thinking that just because he's from Buffalo, well, maybe he has mental disabilities, maybe he's not childlike perhaps, but maybe he's just has slow enough that he doesn't understand that there aren't those correlations. Or perhaps he came with someone who died on the way and he just kept coming because, after all, I'm from Buffalo and there's buffalo out here, so I should be able to figure this out. Maybe he didn't come alone. You don't want that. Well, what other questions do you have? Here you are in the Old West. Why would a single woman from South Carolina move to Deadwood? Okay, that may not be your final question, mind you. Okay, but you've got that. So, well, now you have a character. You have a single woman from South Carolina and she's in Deadwood. What are you going to do with her? Is she going to get roped into a brothel and have to try to get her way out? That would be horrible. I really wouldn't want to read that book, but somebody would. And depending on what you do with it, it could be fabulous. But, why is she there? Is she looking for somebody? Is she a Pinkerton? Is she there with the Pinkertons? And everybody thinks that she's just this, cityfied thing, but she's actually there searching for someone for the Pinkerton. I mean, how cool would that be? You just keep asking the questions, and pretty soon the question for your entire story will emerge. And you may end up with, Why would a Southern girl from South Carolina show up in Deadwood with 2 gold bars? I don't know. Why would she? Well, you're going to tell that in your story. And then now you have a setting, you have a character, you have a question. Maybe you don't want woman. Maybe you go, no, I don't think I want it to be a woman. I think I want it to be the guy from Buffalo, and I want him to say that he thinks he can do it because he's from Buffalo, but he's really not that ridiculous. He's not really thinking that he can do that, okay? He's using that because he's working for the Pinkertons, or because he wants people to underestimate him, or maybe it's not Deadwood. Maybe he was going to go to Deadwood, heard about the gold rush, and made it to California instead. There are so many questions that can emerge, and once they start emerging, everything can shift. So if you don't find one right away, go to the next one, and think about books that you've read. It's one of the best ways that I know to come up with a really cool story. Think of a book you've read that you went, yeah, not super happy about this, or not totally thrilled about that. If you do that, if you say, okay, I'm not thrilled with whatever, but if they had done 1, 2, 3, X, Y, Z, A, B, C, whatever, then I would have thought it was fill in the blank, right? So, maybe you didn't like the fact that Anne of Green Gables was an orphan who didn't have any family connections. Maybe you always thought that they should, how come all the orphan stories that have to do with an orphanage, why can't it be that the families can't take care of their kids and the state parceled them out, and now the parents are going to find the kids, and these are the kids' stories in the meantime, and you get 7 books about these 7 children that were separated from their parents because the rest of the family decided they couldn't handle it, so they got parceled out, but now the parents are working to get them back one by one by one, and this journey to reuniting this family. Whoa, that actually sounds really cool. But you know what I mean? You just look at the books that you've read, the movies that you've watched, the things that people have said. You've heard people say, oh, I liked this book, but I really get tired of it when they do this. Well, then you do something else. You make it different. What can you do to make that different? And when you come up with that, it gets really exciting. So today, we're really just going to focus on just letting these ideas percolate in our head, because tomorrow we're going to go through and we're going to figure out ways to write all the ideas that we can come up with for characters. We're starting with characters tomorrow. You don't have to start with characters to find your final story, but we have to start somewhere. We're starting with characters. Tomorrow I'm going to have a worksheet for you, and you'll be able to look at it and go, okay, with all of this, Shirley can come up with a character. Is he male? Is she female? Are they wealthy? Are they not? What appeals to you? What era are we writing in? Sometimes you have that knowledge when you start because, oh, I'm writing for a novella collection. It's historical. Got it. Oh, no, I'm writing for a novella collection. It's mystery. Got it. Oh, got it. Okay, so tomorrow we'll be back and I'll have a bunch of information for you for how to generate characters quickly, because this is all about getting it done quickly. See you then. Bye.